Washington without an explanation. We ask, where is the press freedom? Tonight we begin with the power play involving Iran from Tehran to Washington. Protests have high-stakes diplomacy. They're all colliding at a critical moment for West Asia as Iran marks 47 years since the Islamic Revolution with mass rallies. The shadow of the deadly crackdowns, nuclear tensions, and the threat of fresh American military action looms large. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians flooded the streets of Tehran today, marking the 47th anniversary of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Rallies were held in more than 1,400 cities nationwide, with some 7,700 domestic and foreign journalists covering the massive show of force, unity and defiance by the Islamic Republic. The anniversary comes at a tense moment. Just last month, remember, a crackdown on the anti-government demonstrations had turned deadly as thousands of people were killed. Even as official celebrations unfolded, protesters were heard renewing anti-government chants from balconies and residential blocks. Speaking amid the commemorations, President Masoud Pezeshkian vowed that Iran would not bow to outside aggression. His message was loud, that the Islamic Republic will stand firm even as the threat of US military action looms large.
Our country, Iran, will not yield to their excessive demands. Iran will not give in to injustice or aggression, but with all our capacity and in pursuit of peace and stability in the region, we are engaged in dialogue with our neighboring countries.
Now, the threat is not abstract because in Washington today, President Donald Trump is set to host the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The high-stakes meeting is against the backdrop of escalating regional tensions and delicate nuclear negotiations with Tehran. This is Netanyahu's sixth visit to the U.S. since Donald Trump's return to office. It is more than any other world leader. He's expected to press for a harder line. His priority is a deal that halts Iran's uranium enrichment and cut off Iran's support for proxy groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. However, Iran has made its position clear. It will not limit enrichment unless Western sanctions that have severely strained its economy are rolled back. Diplomatic channels have reopened. Last Friday in Oman, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the American envoy Steve Witkoff held indirect talks. It was the first since last June's 12-day war. While Tehran sounded optimistic, there is still no clarity on when or if a new round will take place. Now, even as talks continue, the military posturing is intensifying. In an interview with Axios, Trump said that he's considering sending a second aircraft carrier strike group to the West Asia region. Trump's intent is clear. If diplomacy fails, force remains on the table. In fact, he also warned, either we will make a deal or we will have to do something very tough, like last time.
As you know, we have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time.
Now, this warning resonates deeply in Tehran. A couple of days back, the Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had revealed that unexploded bombs are still present at Iranian nuclear facilities that were struck by the US last year. He said that he asked the IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi whether there was any law or protocol governing visits to sites targeted by the United States, and he was told there was none. Unexploded American munitions recovered from strikes on Iranian nuclear sites have raised concerns that Tehran could gain access to sensitive American weapons technology. Reports suggest that some Tomahawk cruise missiles and bunker-busting bombs struck at Iranian facilities. They did not detonate, and they're now in Iranian custody. These unexploded bombs and weapons contain intact guidance, navigation, and sensor systems that could potentially be studied and reverse engineered for technical insights. Washington typically tries to recover such munitions after conflicts to prevent adversaries from doing so. But Tehran has a history of exploiting captured foreign systems. In 2011, Iran studied a downed RQ-170 reconnaissance drone and subsequently developed its own variants. Abbas Araghchi insisted that a security protocol must be established before any inspections can proceed, citing the presence of unexploded munitions and other risks. He also made one thing clear: Iran does not trust Washington and that the outcome of the current talks remains uncertain. Which raises a crucial question. As Washington weighs sending a second Armada to the region, is Iran preparing its own response? Well, reports and rhetoric from Tehran suggest the possibility of reverse-engineered American missiles being readied as a deterrent against any further American buildup. All of this unfolds under the shadow of last June's 12-day conflict. Remember, Israel, with US support, had launched a swift and deadly assault on Iran, targeting military and nuclear sites, civilian facilities, and carrying out assassinations of commanders and scientists. Iran retaliated with missile and drone strikes on Israeli military and intelligence targets. During the conflict, US had bombed 3 nuclear sites before a ceasefire was announced. Is Israel preparing for a new offensive in Gaza? And if so, is the painfully agreed upon ceasefire that came into effect 4 months back at risk of falling apart once again? Is this just Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's pretext for more war because at home his support is collapsing? Well, according to the Times of Israel, the Israeli military is drawing up plans for a renewed offensive in the Gaza Strip to disarm the terror group by force. And if this is true, it would mean renewed fighting in the beleaguered and besieged Palestinian enclave, which is still coming to terms with 2 years of war. You see, the US brokered ceasefire plan reached in October foresees the demilitarization of Gaza, including the disarmament of Hamas, along with a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Strip. However, implementation of the plan has remained unclear, with Israeli officials increasingly believing that stripping Hamas of its weapons will be impossible without the Israel Defense Forces taking any action. Should the hostilities renew, fighting is liable to be more intense and more widespread than previous rounds, as Israeli forces will no longer be constrained by the presence of hostages on Gazan soil. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and the US President Donald Trump have both insisted that Hamas must give up its weapons in the near future. In fact, Trump has repeatedly asserted that Hamas promised to lay down its arms and has threatened the group over the issue. However, at least publicly, Hamas has never really agreed to lay down its arms, and so the tensions continue. Israel also believes that if left unchecked, the armed Palestinian group will remain in power in Gaza, and it will try to rebuild its military strength as it tightens its grip on the areas still under its control. This month, remember, the Israeli military has claimed that since the start of the ceasefire, Hamas has violated the ceasefire agreement and focused its efforts on restoring its military capabilities. Earlier, a senior Israeli security official has claimed that it was looking increasingly likely that the IDF would have to act militarily against Hamas in order to disarm it, as the Israeli military believes that this group will not lay down their arms of its own accord. According to the Times of Israel, in the recent weeks, the IDF's Southern Command has been building plans for a series of potential operations in the Gaza Strip. Should the political leadership instruct the military to disarm Hamas by force? Well, a hint of a potential new offensive also came from the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, who only this month had said that Israel was determined to disarm Hamas and vowed to dismantle the group. Now, if it doesn't agree to lay down its arms, the report also says that the IDF would be expected to operate in areas of Gaza where ground troops have not set foot amid the war, including Deir al-Balah in Gaza's center and the Mawasi area on the southern coast. The IDF did not operate in those areas, mainly due to the potential risk to the hostages, as well as the large concentration of Palestinians there. Following Israeli evacuation orders from other areas of the Strip, but remember, Israel could still be constrained by the Trump administration, which has made the Gaza ceasefire a centerpiece of its Board of Peace initiative. And so, any renewal of large-scale fighting could upend Trump's Gaza plan and threaten the support of its international backers. In October last, Donald Trump had indicated that he would allow Israel to resume fighting if Hamas does not uphold the terms of the deal. However, with the return of all the hostages, it is unclear if Trump still holds this position. In fact, as far as Israel is concerned, until Hamas disarms, Israel is not expected to withdraw its troops from the Strip, leaving the ceasefire agreement in a limbo. Israeli troops currently, remember, hold 53% of the Strip, with most of the approximately 2 million Gazans in the remaining 47% of the enclave under ostensible Hamas control. While embarrassment and global humiliation is not new for Islamabad, Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif's candid admission in the parliament about being exploited by allies like the United States is now making global headlines. Khwaja Asif was speaking in Pakistan's National Assembly, which was discussing the suicide blast in Islamabad last week. Halfway into his speech, Khwaja Asif raised the issue of Pakistan's participation in the two Afghan wars and called it a grave miscalculation. But the real embarrassment hit when he confessed that America had treated Pakistan, quote, worse than a toilet paper. He blamed Washington for using Islamabad for a purpose and throwing it away like toilet paper. In fact, he admitted that US backing had long-term negative consequences, a price that Islamabad is paying till date.
मैं अभी अपने फोन पे जो है यूनाइटेड नेशंस में तकरीर की हुई है हिलरी क्लिंटन, उसने सब कुछ बयान किया हुआ है, वो इस पे चलाएं इसके ऊपर कि किस तरह पाकिस्तान को उन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया। लैंडमार्क तकरीर है उसकी, और वो किस तरह एक टिश्यू पेपर की तरह, टिश्यू पेपर तो फिर भी टॉयलेट पेपर की तरह हमें छोड़ गई यहां पे।
Well, Khwaja Asif also admitted that the anti-Soviet war in Afghanistan in the 1980s was driven by American geopolitical interests, and the circumstances never warranted a declaration of jihad. Just when lawmakers were recovering from this bombshell admission, Khwaja Asif dropped another shocker. He admitted that Pakistan does not properly honor its soldiers that are killed in action, and that politicians often do not even attend their funerals.
जनाब स्पीकर, ये सोचने का मुकाम है कि हम अपने सियासी मफाद, मैं खुदा की कसम किसी को ब्लेम नहीं कर रहा, अपने सियासी मफादात को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए अपने पैठी, अपने जो गोल्स जो हैं इक्तदार के हसूल के लिए हम उनके जनाजों में भी नहीं जाते.
Remember, this is not the first time that the Pakistani Defence Minister has made an embarrassing admission. Last year, in an interview with the British news channel, Khwaja Asif had admitted that Pakistan supported terror groups for 3 decades. Back then, he had labelled it as dirty work on behalf of the West. And coming up on Gravitas, the quiet tweaking that the United States has done in the trade deal with India. We get you more on it in just a bit. And this one's a shocking case from France. A 79-year-old teacher has been identified and charged for raping 89 minors in 9 different countries. Details coming up. Also, a focus on how food adulteration is the immediate health emergency that Indians are grappling with. More details coming up in just a bit. Bangladesh is going to polls in a few hours from now. However, all eyes are on another interesting aspect of this. 127 million people are set to vote in a referendum through which Chief Advisor Muhammad Yunus is reportedly seeking to continue in power. The referendum involves 84 complex questions, at least 47 of which amount to explicit constitutional amendments. While the country's election commission has barred the state machinery from influencing voter choices, Muhammad Yunus and his advisors have openly urged citizens to vote for a yes. In a nationwide address after the end of campaigning for the parliamentary elections, Yunus dubbed the referendum as a new milestone in the country's history.
লক্ষ্যেই আমরা গণভোটের আয়োজন করেছি, যাতে দেশের ভবিষ্যৎ সংস্কার দিশা নির্ধারণে জনগণ সরাসরি নিজেদের মত প্রকাশ করতে পারেন। এই গণভোট বাংলাদেশের ইতিহাসে একটি নতুন মাইলফলক হয়ে থাকবে। এখানে আপনার প্রতিটি ভোট আগামী দিনের রাষ্ট্র ব্যবস্থার ভিত্তি রচনা করবে। এর প্রভাব থাকবে বহু প্রজন্ম জুড়ে। এই ভোটের মাধ্যমেই আপনারা জানিয়ে দেবেন আপনারা জুলাই সনদের প্রস্তাবিত সংস্কার কাঠামোকে এগিয়ে নিতে চান কিনা।
The Nobel laureate also lauded the July National Charter, which proposed the list of reforms to be approved by the referendum. In a clear appeal to voters, he linked the outcome of the referendum to fulfillment of people's long-cherished aspirations. Now, if the yes vote prevails, the new parliament will be mandated to implement the Charter's provisions within 180 working days.
আলোচনায় অনেক প্রস্তাবের পক্ষে বিপক্ষে দীর্ঘ মতবিনিময় শেষে রাজনৈতিক দলগুলো এতে স্বাক্ষর করেছে। এই সনদ জাতির ভবিষ্যৎ পথ চলার এক ঐতিহাসিক দলিল, গণঅভ্যুত্থানের চেতনা, জনগণের দীর্ঘদিনের আকাঙ্ক্ষা এবং ভবিষ্যৎ রাষ্ট্র ব্যবস্থার একটি সুস্পষ্ট দিক নির্দেশনা।
While Yunus will have to transfer power to the newly elected government after polling on the 12th of February, he can still vie for the president's post. Now, this is because Bangladeshi President Mohammad Shahabuddin, an Awami League appointee, has publicly hinted at resigning after the election, citing humiliation from the interim government. Now, how does the charter benefit Yunus? Essentially, it vastly enhances the powers of the president, providing a scope for independent decision-making. For instance, the president will be elected by a secret ballot by not only the elected MPs, but also unelected representatives of the proposed upper house. Additionally, a person holding a post in any party or government will be ineligible to become the president, thereby bolstering the chances of an economist like Muhammad Yunus. As per the charter, the president can make key appointments without the Prime Minister's consent. Now, this includes the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission, the Law Commission, and the governor of the Bangladesh Bank. On the other hand, the referendum seeks to curb powers of the elected Prime Minister. It allows a person to occupy this post for a maximum of 10 years. Additionally, remember, the Prime Minister cannot simultaneously serve as the head of a party. In case of declaring an emergency, the entire cabinet's approval will be required, unlike the current system where only the Prime Minister's signature is needed. The July Charter has also reinstated the caretaker system, whereby elections will be held under the supervision of a neutral setup. While the future plan of Yunus might be revealed in the next few days, remember, it is apparent that the referendum provides him the perfect platform to play a prominent role in Bangladeshi politics. And Siddhant Sibbal, our assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, has sent us this report from Dhaka. It captures the mood from the ground ahead of the high-stakes battle. Take a look.
Well, the stage is set for the big election day on Thursday here in Bangladesh. And the key polls are Shafiqur Rahman of the Jamaat, supported by other parties, including the Students' Parties, and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, whose leader is Tariq Rahman. Now, Awami League, of course, is not present. They have been barred from the elections, and on ground, of course, there is a feeling, a general anti-feeling towards the Awami League. But clearly, when it comes to the authorities' big focus, it is to make sure that there is no untoward incident and there is no violence as millions cast their vote here in Bangladesh on Thursday. With video journalist Neeraj Patel, Siddhant Sibbal for WION in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
The United States has rewritten its own narrative on the India-US trade deal. The Trump administration has revised its official fact sheet, deleting key claims, diluting bold language, and in the process, effectively confirming what New Delhi has maintained all along. India did not surrender its core interests to America, and these changes are significant because this is not any routine edit. This is a strategic rollback. Just days ago, the White House had claimed major concessions from India, tariff cuts on sensitive products, a firm $500 billion purchase commitment, and even the removal of digital services tax. But now, much of that language has either disappeared or has been softened, after it created confusion and led to criticism from the opposition in India as well. The revisions alone tell a clear story. At the heart of this lies agriculture, one of India's most politically sensitive and economically critical sectors. The earlier US fact sheet explicitly claimed that India would reduce tariffs on certain pulses. That was the line that was used. But this has now been erased entirely. Pulses matter deeply to India. The country leads the world in producing and consuming lentils, chickpeas, and dry beans. And millions of farmers depend on tariff protections to survive in a competitive global market. The changes do not stop there. The White House has replaced the word committed with intends when describing India's proposed $500 billion purchase of American goods. And the $500 billion goods no longer include agricultural products. This is crucial because not only does the agriculture sector account for around 1/5 of India's GDP, it also safeguards the sector and domestic farmers. The updated fact sheet also no longer mentions that India would eliminate digital services taxes. In simple terms, digital services tax is essentially a tax that governments charge on big digital companies like Google and Meta that make money from users in their country. Now, the alterations in the US fact sheet reflects that New Delhi successfully pushed back on these characterizations, indicating that back-channel talks between America and India are ongoing and that further changes could still be on the table. But above all of this, when it comes to diplomacy, words matter, because when words change, realities shift. The revised American fact sheet more than confirms one thing, that India stood firm and Washington recalibrated. Shifting focus, hypersonic missiles are unstoppable. Even the most modern missile defense systems struggle to stop them. As Russia and China race ahead with these weapons, Europe, for the first time, has tested a weapon which can fly at least 6 times the speed of sound. Our next story explains why every military wants to have them in its arsenal.
Europe stands at a strategic crossroads. The battlefield of tomorrow will be won or lost not with tanks or drones alone, but with speed, ultra-speed that shatters defenses and redefines deterrence. Speed is the new supremacy. In modern warfare, whoever moves fastest survives longest. And for years, Europe has watched from the sidelines as others mastered the art of hypersonic strike. Now, a German startup has claimed a big stride toward delivering Europe's first hypersonic weapon by 2029. The company Hypersonica conducted this test in Norway. The projectile flew more than 300 kilometers at 6 times the speed of sound. This marks Europe's first serious breakthrough in hypersonic weapons. Hypersonic missiles are weapons that travel at speeds greater than Mach 5 and have the ability to maneuver during flight. This combination of extreme speed and unpredictable flight paths makes them significantly harder to detect and intercept compared to traditional ballistic missiles, which follow a predictable parabolic arc. But here's the hard truth: Europe is behind. Russia is actively using hypersonic missiles. China is making rapid advances. The US, too, is rushing to develop its own hypersonic systems. Europe, meanwhile, has struggled with fragmented defense budgets, slower procurement cycles, and heavy reliance on NATO's American shield. Sovereign hypersonic capability has lagged, tied up in long-term state projects and moving at bureaucratic pace. That is why this Mach 6 test matters. Backed by roughly $25 million in fresh funding, the private team behind the missile promises faster development and leaner costs. The new missile is slated to be ready by 2029. Hypersonic weapons are no longer optional. They are central to deterrence. They can neutralize air defenses, threaten high-value targets, and shift strategic balance in hours. If Europe wants military credibility in a world of accelerating threats, it must move quickly or remain permanently behind the curve.
Moving on, while large-scale corruption is often associated with underdeveloped and developing countries or governments perceived to be authoritarian, a new report by Transparency International paints a rather surprising picture of some of the world's established democracies. The United States has fallen to its worst ever rank in the latest Corruption Perceptions Index of 2025, which ranks countries worldwide by their perceived levels of public sector corruption. In the last decade alone, its rank slipped from 16 to 29. In terms of its corruption perceptions index score, the US shows a downward trajectory. Its score steadily declined 12 points as compared to a decade ago. While it had a score of 76 in 2015, it is down to 64 now, 10 years down the line. This indicates that the level of corruption in the US is on a rise. While countries like Denmark, Finland, and Norway still rank among the 5 least corrupt countries of the world, the rest of Europe is not doing very well. For instance, the UK. It has fallen 11 points as compared to 2015. This is being perceived as a reflection of UK's failure to enforce ethical standards for ministers, lawmakers, and other government officials. Transparency International also blamed questionable public appointments such as that of Peter Mandelson, who was sacked over his links with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Hungary, Poland and Sweden also saw a considerable rise in corruption. France recorded its lowest ever rank, slipping to the 27th position among all other countries. Falling anti-corruption enforcement and growing risks of collusion between officials and private interests have emerged as a major concern. Now remember, this comes in the wake of high-profile corruption scandals such as the conviction of former President Nicolas Sarkozy and the national rally leader Marine Le Pen. Overall, Transparency International stressed that 13 European countries have fared worse on the corruption score, underscoring a widening gap between anti-corruption standards, enforcement, and the integrity of those in power. It called upon Europe to raise its anti-corruption ambitions and not treat corruption as an inevitable menace. Trust a dog to be your most loyal companion. Aloka, a stray dog from India who became a friend, companion, and a fellow walker to Buddhist monks on their long and arduous journey across America, is still with them as they reached Washington, D.C. After completing a 15-week trek from Texas, nearly 24 Buddhist monks arrived at the U.S. Capitol, completing what they call the Walk for Peace. They're still being accompanied by Aloka, who captured global attention by tagging along with the monks. The brown and white canine, with a heart-shaped mark on his forehead, has been walking with the Buddhist monks from Fort Worth in Texas.
I have watched them for the last 2 months. I think probably 2 months ago I became aware of them. And with everything going on in our nation right now, they have provided my spiritual home. They've given me hope.
The Walk for Peace is a march by Buddhist monks across 10 U.S. states to promote world peace. Organized by the Huang Dao Vipassana Bhavan Center, it spans roughly 3,700 kilometers. Remember, the march comes amid growing tensions spurred by U.S. President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, which has led to bloodshed and confrontation. One of the spiritual leaders warned that America is facing what he called a reign of terror due to such measures, calling for conscientious compassion during tough times.
Peace always begins from within, not without. Not out there. Don't expect the world to be at peace, because it will never happen. If we have 100 monks, not just about 20 monks, but if we have thousands of monks walking every day like that, the world's still not going to be at peace.
Our next story is about a silent pandemic in India. Food adulteration is silently poisoning the country, and the crisis is worse than most realize. From milk and spices to honey and paneer, chemicals, water and synthetic additives are all infiltrating our daily diet. It is a growing public health emergency that threatens children's growth, immunity, and the long-term health of the nation. And this threat is not limited to one region or one market. Adulteration is being reported in wholesale bazaars, small retail shops, informal dairy networks, and roadside food chains. High-value items like milk, cottage cheese or paneer, ghee, and edible oils are repeatedly flagged in testing drives. Spices such as turmeric have been found laced with lead chromate, which is a toxic industrial pigment that can cause serious lead poisoning, especially in children. Milk is diluted with water and then masked with detergent, urea, and synthetic chemicals to maintain appearance and shelf life. The list is long, and the recent scandals are even more shocking. Last year, at the Sri Venkateshwara Swami temple in Tirumala, which is one of the most sacred shrines in India, investigators found that spurious ghee worth over 250 crore rupees was supplied between 2019 and 24. The ghee was allegedly made using chemicals like monodiglycerides and acetic acid esters. Similarly, ahead of last year's festive season, the FSSAI flagged paneer as the most adulterated food item. In Uttar Pradesh's Noida alone, 550 kilograms of fake paneer was seized and destroyed. Official data shows 83% of paneer samples tested failed safety norms and 40% was found harmful, adulterated with palm oil, urea and synthetic chemicals. Honey, which is marketed as pure and natural, has been found diluted with sugar syrup. A Lancet study reports that India has the highest number of diabetes patients in the world with an estimated 212 million cases. Even this minor adulteration can have massive long-term effects. And let's not forget the cough syrup scandal from Rajasthan that exposed how contaminated pharmaceutical products could turn. In fact, fatal for young children whose lives were lost. The health impact is devastating. India is already battling a nutrition crisis. According to the NFHS 5 data, 32% of children are underweight, 35.5% are stunted, and over 19% suffer from acute malnutrition. More than 41 million children suffer from stunted growth. When food is stripped of nutrition and laced with toxins, it doesn't just cause food poisoning. It leads to chronic toxic exposure, weakened immunity, developmental damage, lifestyle diseases, and massive healthcare costs that burden families and the economy. So why does this continue? India has a strong legal framework on paper, the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006 that provides for strict penalties, including life imprisonment and fines of up to 10 lakh rupees for unsafe food. The Indian Penal Code and the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita also provide for punishment. The Consumer Protection Act allows citizens to seek damages. The FSSAI sets science-based standards. Food safety officers are empowered to inspect and seize goods. State governments are responsible for enforcement. But implementation remains uneven. Small producers operate on thin margins. Adulteration boosts short-term profits. Laboratory infrastructure and trained human resources remain inadequate in several regions. However, there are efforts that are underway. The FSSAI has notified 246 NABL accredited laboratories and 24 referral labs. 305 mobile food testing vans are operating across 35 states and union territories. Surveillance, random sampling, and targeted enforcement drives have all been intensified. While the regulator is expanding capacity, the crisis demands a system redesign with consumer awareness and more strict punishments, because what reaches our plates matters. Food adulteration is a silent assault on public health, and if it's left unchecked, it could become one of the biggest health security threats that India faces. Shifting our focus now, Nigeria takes back more than 100 artifacts stolen by British forces during the 1897 occupation of the Benin city. The University of Cambridge has officially transferred ownership of 116 Benin bronzes, with plans underway to return them physically before the year ends. Take a look. A Russian-born Israeli journalist was removed from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's flight to Washington earlier today, allegedly without proper explanation, raising serious questions about transparency and press freedom. Russian-born Israeli freelance journalist Nick Kolyohin says that security agents from Israel's Shin Bet removed him from the Wing of Zion, the aircraft which is used by Netanyahu just before takeoff for Washington. Now, he was scheduled to cover Prime Minister Netanyahu's meeting with the US president for 3 Russian television networks. And according to Kolyin, the Prime Minister's office had already cleared him to join the media delegation. He boarded the plane along with around 10 other reporters. He placed his luggage in the media section, and then Shin Bet officers approached him and told him to disembark. The reason? Well, according to the journalist, his connections needed verification. Why were those checks not completed before he stepped onto the aircraft? Why was he cleared in the first place? And why was no specific explanation given at the time? Kolyohin was born in Moscow and he was moved to Israel at the age of 9 during the wave of post-Soviet Jewish immigration. He says that he served in the Israeli Defense Forces and later worked for a government agency within the Prime Minister's office during an earlier Netanyahu term. And he holds only Israeli citizenship. In fact, he's covered major global events, including last year's Trump-Putin summit as well, and he has flown on official trips before. This time, however, he was singled out. Was this purely a security issue or something more? Israel has so far not provided any answers, and that silence is now part of the story. A disturbing case of long-term sexual abuse has emerged from France, where a former teacher has been charged with raping and sexually assaulting dozens of teenagers over more than 5 decades. French authorities say the crimes span multiple countries and date back to the late 1960s. The teacher's name is Jacques Levigule, and he is currently in custody in the southeastern France. Jacques Levigule is currently in custody in southeastern France, as we told you. The 79-year-old has been charged with the rape and sexual assault of at least 89 teenagers in what prosecutors are calling one of the country's largest mass abuse investigations. Investigators say the alleged crimes took place between 1967 and 2022, covering more than 50 years. The case came to light after Levigule's nephew discovered a USB drive in October of 2023. And as per prosecutors, the device contained extensive written records as well as photographs documenting what Jacques Levigule described as his sexual relations with minors aged between 13 and 17 years. The prosecutor said that the material included what he called 15 volumes of very dense content. So far, authorities have identified around 40 victims, which is less than half of the total that are mentioned in the files. In a rare move, the French prosecutors have now publicly named the suspect, urging other victims to come forward. In fact, the prosecutors said that if victims wish to come forward, now is the time. The police believe that Jacques Levigule used his work in holiday camps and informal teaching roles to gain access to young people. They say he often offered language lessons and cultural mentoring, building trust with teenagers before abusing them. According to investigators, his alleged crimes were not limited to France alone. The police say he may have carried out assaults in Germany, Switzerland, Morocco, Niger, Algeria, the Philippines, India, Colombia, and New Caledonia. Prosecutors say wherever he settled to teach or tutor, he would seek out young victims. Jacques Levigule was arrested in 2024 after returning to France from Morocco to visit his brother near the French city of Grenoble. His nephew had grown suspicious of his behavior. He examined the USB drive while Jacques Levigule was away. Several victims have since told investigators that Levigule appeared caring and intellectually supportive, helping them learn languages and explore cultures. Prosecutors described him as having a complex personality. But this is not where it ends. It gets worse after this. Jacques Livigule has also allegedly confessed to killing his own mother and aunt decades ago. He's accused of smothering his terminally ill mother in 1974 and his 92-year-old aunt in 1992. A separate judicial investigation has now been opened into these alleged killings. Under the French law, remember, sexual offences committed before 1993 are protected by a statute of limitations and cannot be prosecuted. However, authorities say documenting the full scale of this alleged abuse is important for the victims and for historical record. The new case echoes two other major abuse scandals in France, where perpetrators kept detailed records of their crimes. In the Pellicourt case, Dominique Pellicourt filmed men assaulting his drugged wife. In Brittany, former doctor Joël de Chorniquet had kept digital records of hundreds of abused children. Both men were later sentenced to 20 years in prison. Prosecutors say such documentations, while they are disturbing, have played a crucial role in bringing offenders to justice. Investigations continue, and investigators continue to appeal for victims around the world to contact the French authorities as the inquiry expands. The French police say investigation remains active, with more identifications expected in the coming months. Authorities are also urging anyone with information to come forward as they work to uncover the full extent of these alleged crimes. Moving on, the fallout of the Jeffrey Epstein saga continues. A UAE-based firm is now facing the heat as its CEO has come under the scanner for his links with the convicted sex offender. Ro Khanna, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives representing California, identified 6 men whose names had previously been redacted in official Epstein-related records that were released by the U.S. Justice Department. This included the name of Sultan Ahmad bin Sulayem, an influential entrepreneur from the UAE. He is the group chairman and the CEO of DP World, which is a global logistics giant that operates dozens of shipping terminals and free trade zones around the world. This firm contributes over 36% to Dubai's GDP. His other ventures, including establishing Nakheel, which is a real estate company that has created many iconic Dubai projects like the Palm Jumeirah. In 2008, he received an honorary doctorate as well from the Middlesex University in Dubai. He serves as the chairman of Ports, Customs and Free Zone Corporation as well. Now, as per reports, Sultan Sulayem maintained correspondence with Epstein even after his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Their exchanges allegedly included crude language and objectifying references to women. In 2009, he purportedly sent a torture video to Jeffrey Epstein, who replied that he loved it. This controversy has now impacted DP World. Canada's second-largest pension firm, La Caisse, announced that it will suspend future investments with DP World until it sheds light on Sultan Sulayem's links with Epstein and takes necessary action. Subsequently, British International Investment, which is a UK government-owned finance institution, also halted its investments with DP World, expressing shock at these allegations. While Sultan Sulayem has not been charged with any of the crimes related to Epstein so far, remember, these allegations are being seen as yet another manifestation of Epstein's ties with the global elite. The India-Pakistan clash is now just 4 days away, and while the last few days have been dominated by politics, the focus now shifts to matters on the field. And the spotlight is now on a Pakistani spinner, Usman Tariq, whose bowling action has been under intense scrutiny and is sure to be a major topic of discussion during the T20 World Cup. Tariq made his T20 World Cup debut in the match against US and was Pakistan's best bowler in this match. He finished the figures of 3 for 27 and helped his team to a second straight win in the tournament. But it's not his performance that is making headlines. It's the off-spinner's bowling action. Unlike some of the other spinners, Tariq Usman has a visible bend in his arm and an unconventional run-up that has led to questions. Tariq zigzags in his shot run-up and then pauses for a couple of seconds before delivering the ball. His action was called into question by Australia's Cameron Green during the recent bilateral series against Pakistan. And on Tuesday, former Indian cricketer Shrivats Goswami suggested that his action could not be allowed. But Ravichandran Ashwin came to Tariq's defense. He said, and I quote, "Firstly, the legalities of his action can only be tested at an ICC bowling action testing centre. And secondly, there is a 15-degree rule under which a bowler needs to keep his elbow and straighten it, and to judge if a bowler is bowling within that 15-degree mark by the on-field umpire is impossible. The only solution to that is having a real-time in competition testing tool. If the pause at the crease is legal or not, and that's where I believe that it is entirely legal because that is his regular action." Meanwhile, veteran umpire Anil Chaudhary echoed Ashwin's views. He stated that because Tariq's pause is a consistent and repeatable part of his natural action, it is legal. The Pakistani spinner was reported twice in his career during the Pakistan Super League and was cleared on both occasions by the ICC. Now, there is no specific law in cricket that forbids a bowler from pausing in their delivery stride, provided they do not commit a dead ball, offence or unfair play. But there are a number of players who have had suspect bowling actions in the past as well, including Muthaiya Muralidharan and Shoaib Akhtar and Sunil Narine. Murli was famously called out for throwing by umpire Darrell Hare during the 1995 Boxing Day Test in Melbourne. However, he subsequently underwent extensive biomechanical testing. It was discovered that he had an inability to fully straighten his arm out. To further prove that his action was legal, he had famously bowled in a laboratory as well while wearing a steel cast on his arm to show that his action was actually natural. The rest, as they say, is history, as he finished his career as the highest wicket taker in Test history. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas, but as always, we'll keep getting you interesting stories from across the world. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
By blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well. From the Khamenei.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is One.
The mood on the ground, with campaigning finally being over.
Bangladesh is all set to go for the mega elections. BNP versus Jamaat. The first elections since the ouster of the Sina government. Follow me, Siddhant Sipal, as I bring you all the live and latest updates from the ground in Dhaka.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.